Well, hi, St. Paul. Welcome to the fourth Wednesday in Lent. Last week, I posted a video sharing my first 3 reflections in my Lenten series of Places of Faith. So here is the 4th reflection. Week 4, Wednesday, March 25th, 2020. The Holy Gospel according to Matthew, the 26th chapter. Glory to you, O Lord. While Jesus was still speaking, Judas, one of the 12, arrived. With him was a large crowd, with swords and clubs, from the chief priests and the elders of the people. Now the betrayer had given them a sign, saying, "The one I will kiss is the man. Arrest him." Well, at once he came up to Jesus and said, "Greetings, Rabbi," and kissed him. Jesus said to him, "Friend, do what you are here to do." Then they came and laid hands on Jesus and arrested him. Suddenly, one of those with Jesus put his hand on his sword, drew it, and struck the slave of the high priest, cutting off his ear. But Jesus said to him, "Put your sword back into its place, for all who take the sword will perish by the sword. Do you think that I cannot appeal to my Father, and he will at once send more than 12 legions of angels? But how then would the scriptures be fulfilled, which say that it must happen in this way?" Well, at that hour, Jesus said to the crowds, "Have you come out with swords and clubs to arrest me as though I were a bandit? Day after day I sat in the temple teaching, and you did not arrest me. But all this has taken place, so that the scriptures of the prophets may be fulfilled." Then all the disciples deserted him and fled. The Gospel of the Lord. Praise to you, O Christ. Places of Faith. Gethsemane. There was a place that Jesus and his disciples would regularly go to pray. It wasn't the temple, although they did go there. This was a different place. It was a garden at the base of the Mount of Olives. Full of trees and olive groves, this was a quiet spot, and it would provide Jesus and his disciples a place to get away. This was the Garden of Gethsemane. Well, Judas, of course, knew the place too. He had been there many times with Jesus, and that's why he knew Jesus would go back there. This was a place of safety and solitude. And so Judas knew that this would be a good place to arrest Jesus. It was out of the way of the crowds and a good spot to grab it. So he led the authorities and the soldiers there. And on that particular night, this place of quiet and solitude took on a whole new tone. Now the Garden of Gethsemane is not known for being a place of refuge. Oh, sure, it still can be a quiet place. It's still full of olive trees that provide shelter and safety. And one of those trees even dates back to the time of Jesus. But the garden now is more famously known for the betrayal that took place there. This place of safety and security has become a place of violation and fear. And today, this happens in our world too. We see it when someone's house gets broken into. We see it when there's a shooting at a school. We see it when a nation is attacked and goes to war. These places that are supposed to be places of safety have become violated. In the Garden of Gethsemane, after the soldiers started to take Jesus, One of his disciples drew a sword and cut off the ear of one of the soldiers. Jesus, though, told him to put the sword back into its place. Sometimes we respond like the disciples. We respond to violence with violence. Someone has violated us, and so we will retaliate and violate them. But Jesus will have nothing of it. So how could he remain so calm when he was being led away? Why did he not fight back against those who were trying to take it? How would Jesus respond to the violence in our world today? Well, sometimes horrible things happen. But Jesus knows that God can still work in the midst of them. One of the places in our life of faith is the place of struggle. It's the place where others betray us. It's the place where we betray others. It's that place where we yearn for quiet, but the chaos of the world still finds us. And yet in that place, Jesus is still there. Even in the face of what Judas did, Jesus still knew that something amazing was going to happen. He knew that God's promise of faithfulness was stronger than any betrayal. This is why Jesus let himself be arrested. Because even though it looked like the world was winning, it really wasn't. Even though it seems like violence has the last word, it really doesn't. Even though it looks like our world is hopeless, it's really not. So when you are in a place of betrayal and broken friendships, when people stab you in the back, or when you do that to others, remember that Jesus is still there. When you are in a place of safety and refuge, but it becomes violated, remember that Jesus is still there. If Jesus can work through the horrible events of what happened in the Garden of Gethsemane, then he can work through your situation too. Jesus knows pain and violence. He knows the real conditions of our world. He knows what it feels like when people turn their backs on you, and when it seems like the whole world is after you. Jesus also knows that this is not the end of the story. Jesus is with you in the quiet places, and he is with you when it seems like the world is falling apart. The fourth place in our life of faith is the place of hurt and new hope. Amen. Please remember to join me next week for the final reflection in this series.